So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan here, and this is another episode of Backroads Arizona.
In this video, guys, I'm going to be doing a couple things with the propane system on my Toyhauler. The first one being is I'm replacing the supply lines that go from the propane tank to the valve that determines which tank you are pulling propane off of.
And the other thing I'm going to be doing is adding some quick couplers to some propane fittings on the side of my trailer so I can run my grill and my fire pit off of the actual Toyhauler instead of having to bring separate propane containers. The main reason I did this is because the easier it is to get ready to go camping, the more likely you're going to do it. And by adding these quick couplers, I no longer have to bring an extra 5-gallon propane tank for the fire pit or worry about having little propane jugs for my grill.
On one other side note here, guys, in case you weren't aware, even if it is no burn or no campfires, you can still run these propane fire pits because they're basically equivalent to a gas grill. So here is a chapter index of what's taking place in this video, guys, in case there's something you don't need to look at so I don't waste your time.
So if you guys end up enjoying this video, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. The whole concept of my channel is to give you guys the most information in the least amount of time as possible so I don't waste your time. So let's get to it. So I ended up getting the propane lines off of Amazon, and they had a pretty wide variety. These are the ones I ended up getting. I got these ones because they do have a pressure gauge on them to tell you how full or empty your tanks are. And so far I have not had any issue with the quality of this product.
The other reason I chose this set is because it had a much wider area for me to grab by hand to tighten it down versus the one that I took off of my trailer. So the replacement of these hoses is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to want to make sure your propane tanks are shut off. Unthread the fitting off of the propane tank, and then using a wrench, I loosened the fitting off of the valve that tells you which tank you are pulling from. Now you will need to use plumber's tape most likely because mine was pipe thread on that valve. And if you have issues with plumber's tape that frustrates you, take a look at the icon at the end of this video showing you how to properly put on plumber's tape quickly and efficiently. Now the reason I ended up replacing these hoses is I had a propane leak that I could smell. It was coming from this left-hand tank, and it was definitely coming from where the tank seals to that hose. However, the problem ended up being the seal in the tank, not the seal on the hose. So I basically ended up doing these for nothing. You'll also notice that I'm timing this hose because it does have a bend to it, either from the way it was packaged or whatever. So I'm turning it to a point where it's going to be the easiest for the angle of the hose to thread onto the tank.
And also, so when you do put it on the tank, you can easily see the pressure gauge.
One other thing to check for if you are replacing these hoses is make sure whether yours are internally threaded or externally threaded. As far as I know, most propane tanks have both, but it's definitely worth checking for before possibly buying something that won't work. I actually changed mine from the internally threaded to the externally threaded, but that was because I wanted the bigger gripping handle to tighten it down. You'll also notice that somebody tried putting pipe tape on this propane hose. That was not me, by the way. That is not the way to seal these tanks. If there is a leak, it's because either the seal on the hose itself or the seal inside the tank, like happened to me, is the problem. The hose that I removed off of my fire pit had a female SAE, so I got the fitting that was female SAE to that quick coupler for the propane. So all I'm doing here is threading that fitting on.
There's no need for putting plumber's tape on SAE fittings because it uses the taper of the fitting to seal.
I always recommend using 2 wrenches to break loose and tighten down fittings. Even though this fire pit looks like it has a clamp holding it, you don't want anything to shift or tweak and possibly not seal right. I got a 20-foot hose so I could keep the fire pit away from the Toyhauler. I actually got my hoses from an alternative hose in Phoenix, Arizona, because I wanted to make sure that the hose was going to stay soft and pliable and not mold if it stayed in a certain shape for too long. So I actually paid a little bit more money than these ones I found on Amazon. This one is a 12-foot that goes directly from a grill to the quick disconnect that you need to hook up to the Toyhauler.
The other thing I did is I did put quick couplers on both ends of the hoses. I didn't want to have to worry about threading any fittings in because that's just more frustration. I like the fact of just being able to quick disconnect hoses on and off. Plus it makes those hoses universal. If I need to use a 20-foot hose on the grill instead of the fire pit, I can switch the hoses around if necessary. Now my Toyhauler did have a quick coupler next to the step going into the trailer already. However, it was original from the trailer, it looked like, so I went ahead and replaced it with a nice new one. That was just a matter of unthreading that one, putting pipe tape on the fitting, and threading this new one back on. I ordered up a Y valve because originally I figured on just running the fire pit and the grill off of this one quick coupler. However, with the fire pit on full blast, the grill had a little bit of trouble lighting. And at that point, I just decided to add a second quick coupler to a fitting that was a little farther up on the Toyhauler. So I had two different supplies for my hoses. So I ended up removing that cap on that T-fitting there.
It was a female SAE cap, so therefore it was a male SAE coming out of the trailer. So I got a female to female SAE fitting and then a male SAE to male pipe thread, so I could put the quick coupler onto that, and that way I have two completely separate
supply quick couplers to run different things off of. And yes, that was the simplest way to get that quick coupler on that male SAE fitting. So here are the two extra fittings that I had to get, plus the quick coupler obviously, to make that work. We also have this mini heater that runs off of those little cans of propane that we can use this for as well. So that's going to about wrap it up for this video, guys. Hopefully it gave you some good information and it helped you out, or some good ideas that you can use on your Toyhauler camper RV.
No.
If so, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. My channel is loaded with all kinds of DIYs, all with the same concept, to save you guys money by doing it yourselves without wasting your time. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Later.